Hey there, YouTube friends, Mass Bandit here. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you are excited for this video and excited for the vintage pack on the channel, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you're new here, it's first time you're finding me, and you like Planet Coaster, you like simulation games, you like management games, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, because that's what I'm all about here on the channel, and that's what I like to play. Mostly Planet Coaster. So we are back on New Day, a new Planet Coaster video for you this week. Today is Vintage Release Pack Day, yay! Vintage DLC Day, woo! I have the Vintage DLC. I actually woke up early today to get my hands on it. Being an American over here, I had to get up. I was up at 5 o'clock to find out that the pack had already released, so that was super exciting for me. Sat down, got playing right away. Most of this video, or at least the first half of this video, was actually recorded before this morning. It was actually recorded before the pack came out. I knew what direction I wanted to head, and I knew I could do it without, I could get at least the base structure done without necessarily needing that DLC. So I mentioned in the first episode that a lot of my inspiration's going to be things like Navy Pier and Galveston Island Pleasure Pier. And so I figured the very first thing we could do would be to kind of get an anchor building here at the end of the pier. And if you are familiar with Chicago, if you've ever been there, you know that this is one of the buildings on Navy Pier. This is the Aeon, or the Eon, A-E-O, or the AO, or the EO, I don't know, the AO Grand Ballroom, which is kind of at the end of Navy Pier. And it's actually significantly bigger than this. It's a massive, massive ballroom. And it's the very end of the pier. It's got flags all around it. We're probably going to add some flags around the end to ours as well. But I thought it would be a great way to get started. It's a structure I'm familiar with, and I thought it would look good on the end of our pier. Another thing I also did in this video, halfway through this video, is I actually narrowed the pier a bit. After getting some advice on Bronation, I posted some pictures. The general consensus was that my pier was a little thick, so I unthicked my pier. It's a little more narrow now, which I think is going to help a lot with scale and all that. So I mentioned that I was going to kind of break away from my original build style of like millions of pieces. Yeah, I clearly lied. In order to build this structure, we have to do a custom dome. There's just nothing else you can do. And since we need to be able to rotate all of our pieces, we can't use any gridded pieces in this at all. So this building here won't have, the only gridded pieces in the building are the pivot pole in the middle there. Everything else is scenery. Well, you know, pillars that aren't on the grid and little pieces that aren't on the grid, which makes for a massive, massive building. The roof alone on this structure, not the dome, but once the whole thing is in, the roof on this structure is over 4,000 pieces, just for the roof. I had to actually, when all said and done, I actually had to break this building up into 3 blueprints. And each one is well over 1,000 pieces. Like I said, 4,000 for the roof, and then another like 1,200, another 1,800. So we're talking almost 7,000 pieces. God, that's awful. Another about 7,000 pieces just for this building. So yeah, but like I mentioned, I wanted to get the structure done before the pack came out. And so this morning brewed myself a pot of coffee that I'm currently still sipping on here a couple hours later. And then we'll get into the vintage actual DLC stuff in a few minutes here. So while we're here, and it is Vintage Day, it's Vintage DLC Day, hashtag Vintage DLC Day, I would like to talk a little bit about the pack. I haven't, again, I've only had it for a couple hours, but I did watch mostly John T's stuff yesterday. He had a really nice breakdown. He did a couple different videos. If you're on the fence, if you haven't yet watched his videos, or Delaydy's, or Rudy's, or any other people that already got the DLC, I think they got it yesterday. They've had it for a while, but the embargo was released yesterday, and so they put all their videos out yesterday. If you haven't seen what's in this pack yet, I highly recommend you do that. I love it. I think it's going to be a really nice pack. It's a little scenery light compared to other pieces, to other packs. Or maybe it just feels like that because a lot of what they have is very, very specific. Like there's a whole set of trapeze artists that, to be frank, I'm probably never going to use, ever. And as far as building sets, there's not like a whole brand new building set like there was with Adventure or Spooky. Well, there's one, but it's not complete. It's about a half a building set, and they've actually fleshed out a bit of the painted wood set, which is I'm really excited for. They've added some pieces to the painted wood set, which will really flesh that out quite well. So it's scenery-wise, you might be a little lacking. If you're all about building and stuff like that, you might be like, oh, this is it. But it's okay. I mean, what it is, I think, is that the details they have in this pack are so spectacular. The vintage vibe of this pack is so clear and so good that you don't need, you're going to see here, we don't add a lot of vintage pieces to this building, and it still ends up feeling very much vintage, which is super duper exciting. So I think that's where the strength is. There's not as many pieces that I'll be using, but the ones that are so excellent at conveying that vintage look that I think it's really going to be quite excellent. So, that being said, the rides in this DLC, I think, are where most of the action is. The rides here are very, very strong. There are 5 flats and 3 coasters. One of the coasters comes with a free update. The only one I've played around with is the retro wooden coaster, the one that's kind of like Big Dipper or Cyclone. You'll see in the video we do start working on a coaster in this episode as well. So I wanted to get at least a couple vintage things out to you guys today. So the coasters are neat. The wooden one kind of is it's kind of like a new skin. And if you play without track restrictions off, which I actually forgot to do, I'll probably turn the restrictions off in the next episode, but I forgot to. This new wooden coaster can only bank to 30 degrees, which is interesting. But it can go really, really steep. So it's one of those old wooden coasters before they realized how coasters could kill you. So yeah, we get working on that in a little bit and talk a little bit about that as well once we get there. So here we are, and there's about to be a little cut in the video. After doing it this way, we're trying to just move the pieces over. I realized everything wasn't 100% correctly aligned like I thought it was. So I end up doing a cut, and I go in and I build a little tile set. And that's what I've done here, is I've built each wall segment again with a piece of wall so I could just tile them quite nicely, and they lined up perfectly. And here we're going to work on the 2 iconic towers that are connected to this ballroom. And then there's another structure that extends most of the length of the pier here. Like Navy Pier, I don't really know the history, but I know it was a naval base. And so there's this just really long, huge building that they've retrofitted to do all these different things. But I don't know how far back ours is going to go. I don't think it's going to end here. I think we are going to extend it a little bit. We might put some bumper cars on the other side of this dome. And as far as what is the dome, I don't know. Maybe it's a convention center, a meeting place, something like that. It's not huge, but it's okay. So now you're seeing some of the vintage pieces we have. These toppers are very large, but since these towers of mine are quite large, they fit really, really well. I really like it. But you'll see it's 2 spires, 2 columns, and then this little spire here, and that immediately makes it feel very, very, I think it makes it feel quite vintagey. I love the look of these towers. I think they're fantastic. Really excited to have these added. There are some great new fence pieces that I'll be using. But other than that, it's just the little details to really make this feel super vintage. It's great. So you're seeing me here kind of fiddling around. This is the first time I'd opened the pack, and so I'm just kind of trying to find what's going to work for me here. And I ended up going back to the old standard pillars and stuff, but this building that I'm doing, the details are not quite as heavy. They're not quite as ornate as some of the other more Victorian vintage things, which I would like to include. I think we're going to include some of that. I have on my desk here a book. It's one of those Images of America series, if you're familiar with those. And it's of Riverview Amusement Park, which is an old Victorian amusement park in Chicago, right on the Chicago River, on the north side of Chicago. Basically, Belmont and Western is where that used to be located. It's now a high school. But my wife's grandparents went to this park, and there are some awesome images of things, and it looks like Planet Coaster looked at this book when they made the pack. So I'm going to be bookmarking some things to use as reference images so that it won't all be brick like this. We'll get into some of the more Victorian looking, fair, vintagey things later on in the series. I think a bumper, like I said, the bumper cars will be housed. We'll do some of the flats. We'll house them in some much more traditional vintage looking covers. And then some of the shops will be pretty standard, pretty basic. So here's some of those awesome new fences. I actually flipped them upside down. I thought that worked better for what I was going for. So I haven't looked at anything that's in the new update, the free update, all the new plants and all that. I've got to check that out. I can't wait to experience that. Not sure how those new plants are really going to fit in all that well with the pier here. Might do some pier planters. I don't know. I have to do some more research. But so what we're doing here right now is on these buildings. If you look up the inspiration photos of the inspiration building, there's these white kind of crosshatch patterns, and this is as close as I could get in my quick search. I don't want to spend decades doing this, so I do like how it ended up. And then and the nice thing about building with grid pieces like this is it's pretty easy to copy and paste and stuff. So you'll see, once I finally remember that and figure that out, it's not so bad. We decorate one tower and then we just rotate it over, or we just rotate and then we just copy the whole thing over. I forgot how nice that system is because it's been so long since I've used buildings that have gridded pieces in them. Might have to do that some more. So yeah, so that's what's going on here. Pretty straightforward. Repositioning it more to where I want it. Now I have an issue. When I was building that map, and thank you to all of you that said you want that map. That is excellent to hear. I will be getting that to you before episode 3 drops. I actually was going to have it for you today, but I went in and realized that there are no people in my park for 2 reasons. Reason number 1, I put the spawn points in the wrong part when I was building in the scenario editor. Whoopsies! And reason number 2, I had the park entrance gates flipped around backwards. Whoopsies again! So, apologies, you don't have that map for you today, but you will have this map. It'll be blank pier with those condos. It'll basically be everything in episode 1 you'll have. So that'll be that, and you can go ahead and build your own pier. It'll also be narrow. It'll be this version that I'm working with right now. I narrowed it up, so it'll be that version, so it'll feel a little better. It might be a little more space restrictive, which I don't think is a bad thing when you're building a pier, but you can expect that to drop tomorrow, if not later today. It's pretty much ready to go now. I just need to upload it. I wanted the video to come out. I wanted to make sure I got this video out before I did much of anything else. So now that building is complete, we're going to be moving on to the new coaster type. And while we get about a half a layout done here, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it. One of the things I really have to work on here is being good with my space. We're working on a pier. Space is limited. I feel like there's a lot of wasted space in my layout. You'll see as we build here. I'm trying to do the traditional kind of cyclone-y figure 8 kind of layout, and I think it works pretty well for the most part as far as how it rides. I think it's a little too, if I'm going to be honest, a little too smooth. I think it's a little too modern. I have to jank it up. I have to be a little more aggressive with the transitions, and I have to unbank some portions of it. But it hauls. It goes pretty quick. But yeah, so I think it's a little bit too spread out. Or it's not making good use of, you can see where the drop and then how much space we have between the drop and the pier. I think I can tighten that up a bit. So if you see in the next episode a new coaster, then you know that I've gone ahead and done that off camera, because I don't want to rebuild this coaster on camera again. What I might do is I might just go ahead and build a half a layout that I'm happy with and then pick up the videos with that. So we'll finish the coaster in the next episode, and we will put a simple station on it, and we'll start building from there. And we can, I think what I want to do is I want to plop all the big rides. I want to do all the coasters first, put them where I want them to go, and then any big buildings I may want, I'll put them where they want to go, and then try to squeeze in as many rides as I can and as many little food stalls as I can. And that's kind of what I'm going to be doing. I think that makes the most sense. That's why these are probably going to be 2 of the bigger things on the pier. So that's why I wanted to knock them out right away. And I wanted to make sure you could see me building with the new coaster. So The supports are a little different on this one. They're aged. They have a little bit different look to them. And the cars are really, really nice. So I'm super excited for this pier. Like I said in the first episode, I've never done this before. I never thought I'd like building a pier. I was like, pier park, whatever, blah, blah. But actually, I'm really enjoying it right now. It's something different, which I think is what I've needed. I've never done something like this before. So it's actually really, really nice to be like, I'm doing something totes different. So we're about to enter into the end of the episode here. So I hope you have yourself a great day, great night, great whatever. And remember to like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so you can catch more Planet Coaster. Have yourself a great day, great night, great whatever. How about this vintage Planet Coaster theme, huh? Love it. Anyway, take care, everyone. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.